It's Wales at 6 with Andrea Byrne.
On tonight's Wales at 6, the heartbroken parents of a woman who died by suicide say more needs to be done to tackle websites that target vulnerable people.
It just beggars belief that there are people out there encouraging people to take their own lives and offering the means for them to do that.
Also on the programme, Welsh farmers want to squash the beef with climate campaigners. They say their carbon footprint is smaller than you think.
Plus, the stunning mural project that's breaking down boundaries and crossing borders. We'll meet the artists behind it.
And a childhood favourite gone but not forgotten. We take a trip down memory lane to mark a quarter of a century since the closure of Pensgynna Wildlife Park. Hello, good evening to you. The Welsh Government has today released £1 million to help farmers reduce ammonia emissions from livestock. It comes as some in the industry have this week hit back at claims they're big polluters of the environment and contributing heavily to climate change. With more, here's our Rural Affairs correspondent Hannah Thomas.
Come on in.
Tom Rees's beef farm emits 26% less carbon than the average British beef enterprise. His woodland soaks up 100 tonnes of carbon a year, but that's not as much as his grassland.
Our permanent pasture we've got here, we've got about 200 hectares of it, and that typically sequestrates about 500 tonnes of carbon a year. We do get bad press on it, but I think this is evidence to prove that Welsh agriculture can be part of the tool in combating climate change and not part of the problem of climate change.
Tom farms at Pendoilen in the Vale of Glamorgan. This is what surrounds every field, and there are rich pickings for birds at this time of the year.
Well, Welsh farmers have long talked about the beauty of these, and they're not just talking about the berries on the hedgerows, but the fact that they sequester lots of carbon. Tom says he's got about 20 hectares of hedgerows on his land. That's roughly the same as 50 football pitches, all providing shelter for livestock and habitats for wildlife.
At this week's NFU Cymru conference, the focus was on climate change mitigation. Dr Nikki Rust is from the UK's Climate Change Committee, and this is her view.
I don't want farmers to be thrown under the bus in the race to net zero. We have to support them along the way. Farmers need more money to help them transition. And yes, that can come from government, but we're seeing that the purse strings are very tight right now, so we are going to have to also rely on the private sector to have some of that funding as well.
Other environmental scientists say that farmers can't wait for their research. They have a big role to play in cutting our carbon footprint.
The biggest contributor to global warming is burning fossil fuels, but we have data of all the different emissions within Wales, and agriculture is one of the main sectors, so there are greenhouse gas emissions associated with Welsh farming.
Reducing those, say the critics, is a priority, but farmers say it cannot be at the expense of their livelihoods on the land. Hannah Thomas, ITV News.
A man has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after a collision in Cardiff. The incident happened in the early hours of yesterday morning on Harris Avenue. Police said the 34-year-old man from Rumney appeared at Cardiff Magistrates Court today and has been remanded in custody. 2 women were left seriously injured and remain in hospital in a stable condition. Steelworkers say they're willing to ballot on industrial action if Tata Steel does not engage with them constructively over new restructuring plans. It's understood Tata's as yet unpublished proposals for producing steel in a greener way could threaten around 3,000 jobs in Port Talbot. The community union said if the company pushes ahead with the plans without engaging with workers, employees would use all the tools at their disposal to oppose it. And fewer people went to the shops in October, according to the Welsh Retail Consortium. Figures show a fall of more than 5% compared to the previous month. Numbers going to shopping centres also fell sharply by more than 8%. Bad weather has been blamed for the slump in numbers. A village in Gwynedd has launched a bid to buy their local marina after it was put up for sale earlier this year. The Grade 2 listed site of Port de Norwich lies in the Menai Strait and could soon be under the ownership of a community enterprise started by those living in Felinheli. More than £30,000 of shares have been bought in just 3 days, with a target of 300,000 by the end of the month. Ian Lang has more.
The harbour has played a major part in the life of the community here for generations. Once slate from the Norwich quarry was transferred from railway wagons to ships from the dock. Its more recent history has been as a marina. But in July it was concerned that because of financial difficulties the marina was up for sale. Now the community of nearby Felinheli have thrown their hat in the ring and want to buy it, and they've launched a share offer to raise £300,000 as part of their campaign, and they're appealing for public support.
We're going to be needing about 2.3 million altogether, and the share offer will be about 300,000, and then we're hoping that will be completed by the end of November.
They're keen to get the message out as far afield as possible, and they produced their own video featuring Welsh comedian, actor and broadcaster Tudur Owen, one of the leaders behind the campaign.
We, the community, can buy it, and together with the hard-working staff that's already here, we can secure it and run it for the future generations. So that's exactly what we're going to do.
The Community Enterprise Group has already submitted its financial bid for the site, but can't reveal the price they've offered. They believe that a combination of grants and local financial support can put the site in their hands, and there's great potential.
The marina, it's got masses of historical value, but also there's real potential, not just in the short term in terms of, supporting some of the thriving businesses that are here already, but also in terms of developing for the future, developing some of the assets for community use. And the key thing is that, any money that's made from a project like this actually goes back to the community directly in the marina and also supporting activities in the village.
If the community can buy it, then it will be the community that reaps the benefits of that. Any kind of surplus, financial surplus, would go back reinvested into other projects in the village and other projects down here.
It's an ambitious project, but the campaigners here believe they can do it. Ian Lang, ITV News, Felinheli.
Losing a child to suicide is an unbearable thought, but the tragic reality for the family of 26-year-old Bronwen Morgan. Bronwen took her own life in August 2020 after using a website to research suicide methods. Earlier this week, the coroner submitted a report to both the Welsh and UK governments calling on them to do more to protect vulnerable people like Bronwen from these online sites. Bronwen's mother and father has spoken to ITV Wales about their loss and their calls for action. Isa Farfel reports.
She was passionate about everything. She was the most caring person in the world, and she was extremely considerate to others.
Only 4 days before her birthday, Bronwen booked herself into a hotel room and wrote, "It's too late to save me now. There are only so many times that someone can ask for help." Next, she took her own life. Bronwen was diagnosed with emotionally unstable personality disorder back in 2019. Her family feel the support she received from the health board was not good enough.
We were never happy with the treatment that she had. We didn't feel that the package was enough. We didn't think it was right. At the end of the day, she took her life, so they failed her. That's the way I see it.
We lost all hope as a family. We couldn't see a way forward. And I think that's what ultimately brought on Bronwen's death.
A spokesperson for Cardiff and Vale University Health Board said, "Our sincere thoughts and heartfelt condolences continue to be with the family and friends of Bronwen at this incredible sad time. As a health board, we remain committed to providing safe, quality and compassionate mental health support to individuals across Cardiff and Vale. in both community and inpatient settings. As a learning organisation, we are fully receptive to any areas of improvements and will continue to build on the implementation and improvements we have made so far. We would welcome the opportunity to engage with Bronwyn's family to discuss actions and learnings taken by our health board and how we can continue to build on these learnings going forward. The inquest into her death concluded that Bronwyn died of suicide and that her death and the care she was receiving could not be linked. Bronwyn used a website to discuss suicide with other users. Now the coroner has submitted a prevention report to the UK and Welsh governments to put a stop to online suicide forms.
Very, very alarming. I had no idea that these websites even existed until we found that Bronwyn had ordered and taken advice from one of these sites.
And I actually think I took the parcel from the chap and gave it to Bronwyn, unbeknown to me what it was. And the advice they gave, it was almost like a suicide package. They were offering you what to do, when to do it. It's so upsetting.
There has been some good work done in recent years. Samaritans have worked very hard on what was recently passed as the Online Harms Act. It came into force recently. That act puts new duties and regulations in place in respect of social media providers. It means that they will be regulated much more heavily in terms of the most dangerous, illegal content.
She was a student nurse and wanted to provide mental health support, but her own mental health got in the way. Now there are concerns, but hopes too, that action will be taken to prevent new names from being added to the suicide list. Isa Farfour, ITV News in Cardiff.
And if you have been affected by any of the issues we've discussed, you can find free advice and support by going to itv.com/helplines. Still to come on this evening's programme, the weather's been turbulent recently. Ruth, that has the forecast.
Well, more of the same, I think it's safe to say. On a positive note, we are weather warning free, but that doesn't mean it's going to be plain sailing by any means.
You always bring us something positive. We'll also be recollecting a much-loved day out for many a family as we turn the clock back a quarter of a century to when Pensgunner Wildlife Park last welcomed visitors. Now, Wales take on the Barbarians tomorrow afternoon at the Principality Stadium as the national team play their first fixture since returning from the World Cup. However, the game's not been without its controversy as it coincides with the Cardiff versus Scarlets derby match. Our sports reporter Matt Southcombe is at the Principality Stadium for us this evening. Why has the timing of these games caused quite such an issue then?
Well, Andrea, the game is taking place on the same weekend as all four of the Welsh regions are in action. Now, the Cardiff supporters group wrote to the WIU recently to call the decision to schedule this game tomorrow unfathomable, and Scarlets head coach Dwayne Peel said that it was frustrating and unhelpful. Doubly so for the Scarlets, as you mentioned, because this game will finish just hours before the Scarlets welcome Cardiff to Parc y Scarlets in a Welsh derby, which of course is a big money spinner for the region, but none of the best players are going to be on show. Now, the flip side to that is this game tomorrow here will generate revenue for the game in Wales at a time when the WIU and the regions are all counting the pennies. That being said, interim CEO Nigel Walker has said that this clash should not have happened and says that it will not happen again in the future. Now, rugby politics aside, this game does have intrigue because, of course, captaining the Barbarians is none other than Alan Wyn-Jones. And, of course, Welshman Justin Tipuric is also in their side. Now, that all makes it for a very confusing afternoon for somebody like George North, who has shared a changing room with those players for his entire career.
Justin is probably one of the best players I've ever played with as a whole. Both sides of the ball, his understanding of the game of rugby union, how best to imply himself and have the best effect, and one of the fittest, best players I've ever played with. Al, obviously another big character for us and for the Barbars now. For Al to have his last game here at home, I think it'd be special for him. Obviously play against Wales as well. I'm sure he'll be up to no good and trying to wind people up. I've already had a few messages, which has been great.
Now, of course, this will also be Lee Halfpenny's final game for Wales, so it'll be a day of celebration here at the Principality Stadium. But there is a backdrop of unrest about the timing of this fixture. There seemed to be a bit of a quiet pause in Welsh rugby during the Rugby World Cup, but in Welsh rugby, things never seem to stay quiet for too long.
They don't. Matt, thank you. Boxer Joe Cordina is gearing up for his world title fight against Edward Vasquez in Monte Carlo tomorrow night. It will be the first time he defends his IBF super featherweight title since winning it in the capital last June. The Cardiff-born fighter is the bookies' favourite, but the pressure is on. A win would mean he's one step closer to a fight on home soil.
I need a win, because the thing is, if I don't win, then the big fights ain't there, the big money fights ain't there. So I've got to do everything in my power to make sure I'm victorious on Saturday. It's not going to be an easy fight. There's a lot for him to gain, nothing to lose. And it's a big opportunity. So, yeah, I've got to make sure that I do everything in my power. The fighters are relying on me to bring big nights of boxing back to Cardiff. And that was my whole plan anyway when I turned pro.
Quite a sporting weekend ahead then. Now, at home, you might be just about to sit down to dinner, but with rising prices, how to make your meal both tasty and cost-effective has probably crossed your mind. A cookery class in Caerphilly County is looking to help people make the most of their fridge staples whilst keeping all within budget. We sent Sean Jenkins along to pick up some tips.
When it comes to cooking these days, we're all trying to get through our unused fruit and veg and those long-forgotten tins and jars in the back of our cupboards. And at this Indian cooking class in Newbridge, it's all about exactly that, how to make the most of what you've already got.
We are all going through a cost of living crisis at the moment, and we are just trying to give people the essence of home-cooked food. And that's why we are here today, to let people know how people can use their home things and the food what they are left at the home to cook the food.
The idea came about after Tamasri noticed that certain basic but versatile foods and ingredients were being left behind at food banks.
I've seen that there are lots of chickpeas, red kidney beans, a couple of vegetables. I mean, people don't know how to use it, so they're leaving it behind. We can do something to help the community. The people know that how they can actually cook a full meal out of those ingredients, out of those vegetables and tinned foods which is left behind.
These classes are run and organised by Kieran Cymru, an organisation which promotes well-being through community inclusion. And it's that sense of sharing ideas and the enjoyment of food which is at the heart of this project.
Irrespective of culture and irrespective of backgrounds, food is always a very special area in human lives. So this is absolutely essential from that perspective, and it's very special to our hearts as well.
And what's been shown and served up here today has definitely got the thumbs up.
I've learned how to make curries using all the spices that are available and all the vegetables. It's really interesting and very tasty.
You can make a meal for next to nothing, or what you got in the cupboard, and it doesn't cost much, does it?
And what about the taste test?
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely brilliant. Yes.
And will you make it yourself?
Definitely. This is Saturday night's supper.
Sean Jenkins, ITV News, Newbridge.
Sounds like it was a hit. Still to come on the ITV Evening News.
Coming up, the latest from Gaza as more Britons are allowed out. Nearly 100 are on the list approved to leave today, while the family of Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, have already crossed the border. Also tonight, a family's dismay as Zara Alina's killer has his sentence reduced. And a wet end for the King and Queen's 5-day tour of Kenya. Well, join us for those stories and much more from 6:30.
Charlene with you very shortly. Before that, though, artists from across the globe have come together in Cardiff to create murals celebrating inclusive art. Disabled creatives from Wales and Indonesia are showcasing their talents to produce several giant artworks, and we can see just how they are getting along by going to Mike now to tell us a little bit more about the project. Good evening, Mike.
Andrew, good evening. We are in Craft in the Bay, which is a wonderful community-driven project in Cardiff Bay that allows artists from across the country to promote their work, but also is a space to create work in too. And the work that's been created here is not just for artists with disabilities to really exercise their skills, but it's a spirit of international collaboration as well. We've been here throughout the day hearing all about it.
A colourful vision comes to life. Artists with disabilities and volunteers working together. These murals celebrate their identity and their work.
My name's Andrew Bolton and I have been a mural artist for a very long time now. I mainly work with disabled people, actually. My sort of politics and my vision is all about disability equality and people being included. And so I developed into working with disabled people. Years and years probably I was doing that before I sort of actually acknowledged that, yeah, I'm disabled. And there is still that about disability art now. It's often expected to be less in some way, and that disabled people can't produce excellent work on a par with any other artist's work, which of course they can.
The project began life back in lockdown. Andrew's worked with artists in Indonesia to design murals over there and back in Wales. But they've never been in the same room or country until today.
And how do you feel about meeting in person after so many years of conversations remotely about what the work will be like and creating the work here today?
Suka banget, senang. Saya senang. I'm happy.
Yeah, so he's very happy because that's basically what you expect. Yes. And we've discussed this for a year, more than a year now. The exchange of culture, exchange of experience, and learning from the other artists and learning from the other culture is important for him to create more work to do with disability and equality.
We can live together peacefully, with equality, and we have same problem, same condition, but we should doing that together to solve the problem.
The murals will soon go on display outdoors in Cardiff Bay, sharing a visual and vital message with a wide audience.
There really is a wonderful atmosphere here tonight after a busy day of work. People locally and people from the Indonesian community who are based in Wales have been celebrating these extraordinary giant artworks which are effectively complete now. Now they will be going on display very shortly, adding to others that have been done in recent months, and they'll be going on display at the Pedal Power site. They have two in Cardiff, this one in Cardiff Bay, which itself a charity that's done incredible things to help people with disabilities and other needs access the outdoors. This is a testament to the work that's been done and hopefully inspire many more conversations.
Mike, they look fantastic, and what a wonderful collaboration. Now to many, Pensgunner Wildlife Park was a Noah's Ark in the Neath Valley, an attraction that allowed you to get close up to its animals. It was of its time and certainly not something you'd see today, but it inspired a generation of children, some of whom have come together for a special programme coming up here on ITV, including our very own Jonathan Hill. I'll let him take up the story.
Deep in the woods stand the ruins of Wales' wildest attraction. This was Pensgunner Wildlife Park, and it was brilliantly bizarre. Back then, it was teeming with exotic creatures, squawking and warbling. It was like entering another world. I'd pester my parents to take me on weekends, and my childhood memories still shine brightly. It closed a quarter of a century ago, but the story of its rise and fall is extraordinary. Pensgunner opened to the public in 1971, the brainchild of Idris Hale.
There's no doubt that he was a visionary. Eccentricness thrown in for good measure.
Pensgunner became hugely popular. Around 250,000 visitors flocked to the park each year.
My favourite was the monkeys, but they were so naughty, some of them. They'd pinch in each other's food, and then they'd even run up to you, right up to you, and show you their bottom.
No, they did.
Percy the pelican swallowed me. So like screaming my head off, like in my arms and crying, and all this fuss like inside a pelican. Every time I went up there, and I just stayed away from him. I was very cautious.
In the 1980s, the park introduced a brand new attraction. It had absolutely nothing to do with wildlife, but it was certainly wild.
The Alpine Slide. It was the first time I'd ever been on this kind of ride. Literally just a little bucket seat, handle in the middle. I can remember my cousin, he went too fast around the bend, so yeah, he just went off the edge a little bit, but he's fine as well.
When it was one of the only places to go, it was something that easily paid its bills. But that got progressively harder and harder as competition from other attractions got more significant. And sadly, the gate numbers did go down.
In 1998, Pensgunner closed its doors for good. There's an entire generation of children, just like me, whose past will always be tied to this place. And those sights, sounds and smells were pretty special.
And Pensgunner Life on the Wild Side will be broadcast on ITV Cymru Wales this Sunday evening at 7:30. Now, it has been a lot calmer, I'm pleased to say, weather-wise than it was yesterday. But Ruth is here, and you hinted that that's not necessarily the way it's going to stay.
Well, you know, the thing with our weather is you can always predict the unpredictable. There we are. I think that's probably the best way of saying it. And we always do, but with a smile on our faces, Andrea. So, of course, lots going on this weekend. It is bonfire night, and if you are making any plans, then you are going to have to listen up to this forecast because it is going to be very, very hit and miss. So, Storm Kieran, he came, did his thing, and is now gone. But more low pressure waiting in the storm by any means, but it is going to bring more unsettled conditions. So wet and windy weather, certainly through Saturday. And then there's a chance of something slightly drier and brighter as we head into the tail end of the weekend. So my advice would be to make any outdoorsy plans for Saturday if you possibly can. Here we go in a little more detail.
Transport for Wales. Proud sponsors of ITV Cymru Wales Weather.
Not too bad out there at the moment. We have had showers today, a few of these still persisting, but actually over the next few hours, these will fizzle away, and under clear skies, the temperatures are going to drop. So a distinct chill in the air. And then all change into the second part of the night and the early hours of Saturday morning. The winds will start to pick up the pace, switching to a more southerly direction. As you can see, the first batch of weather will start to push into the south and the west. A dry night, possibly the clear skies remaining the further north that you go. But as we wake then to Saturday morning, even showers will hit. These will be slow moving, they will be heavy, they will be thundery. We could even see some hail thrown in too. And of course, this all falling onto ground which is already saturated, making for some thoroughly unpleasant conditions. Localised flooding, again a possibility, and surface spray to contend with on the roads too. That being said, as the day progresses, there'll be some dry spells, but feeling disappointingly chilly under cloudy skies in northern areas in particular, struggling to get into double figures. Further towards the south and the east, a little bit milder here with highs of 11 or 12 in Celsius, but some very wet conditions then through Saturday night. If you are making plans for bonfire night, might be something to be mindful of. And then, as I've been saying, there is the promise of something just a little bit drier and brighter for the second part of the week. Now, we're not that lucky to be in this, but a lot of dry weather and some decent spells of sunshine, and possibly a little bit milder as a result as well. But as far as your outlook is concerned, the general setup is one of sunshine and showers, and as you can see, the temperatures by night starting to dip as well.
Trafnidiaeth Cymru yn falch I noddi tywyd ITV Cymru Wales.
So the sensible bit, the message is always for bonfire night is be sensible and be safe as well. There you go. That's the mumsy bit over with. Take your waterproofs if you are heading out and about. It might be worth it.
Lots of people who were making plans might not be anymore.
It's not going to be a washout, but it could be dry.
Just take the right steps. Ruth, thank you. And that's it from us. Sean Jenkins is back with your late update. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Anger as the man who murdered Zara Alina has his sentence reduced. Zara was stalked, stamped on and sexually assaulted by her attacker last year as she walked home. But his minimum term has now been cut, to the disappointment of her family.
It is that feeling that somehow women are not being prioritised.
Also tonight, relief for Humza Yousaf as his in-laws finally make it out of Gaza, as inside the Strip a strike hits an ambulance convoy heading towards the border.
Now you shut up, you stupid man!
How what a Tory MP said next has seen him found guilty of racist abuse. And heavy rain dampens the final day of the King and Queen's Royal Tour in Kenya.
This is the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. The family of Zara Alina, the 35-year-old law graduate murdered last year,